Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to another edition of Court Call with Ronnie Nunn. As we all know, Ronnie was an NBA referee for 19 years, was the head of officials for 5 more, and then spent 3 years as the director of development. Ronnie, can't wait to go through these plays. How's everything going on your end?
Everything's great. There's an exciting time of basketball, both in the NC2A area as well as in the NBA, obviously, as they start getting tighter and tighter closer to the playoff run. So you see plays become tighter and tougher to deal with as a referee.
Oh, I can imagine the pressure is on for everybody, and there was a lot of people screaming bloody murder across all during the last weekend. So we picked one play that I thought was interesting, which was Temple versus Iowa. Was a real grudge match, went back and forth, and at the very end of the game, they get a shot off. It doesn't go in, but they get the tip in basically at the buzzer. And this was a tough one. And I'm curious if you agree with some of the Temple fans that felt like there might have been a little bit of a push-off on that rebound.
Well, the bottom line is there is a push-off, but it's interesting about this play. Now, this is a very sophisticated play for a college referee or a pro referee or any referee. One of the things I've learned in basketball rebounding as an official is if you put yourself in a position where you really can't get to the ball, you're really out of sorts when maybe a little push goes on. Now, this was a push. I prefer to see rebounders with a forearm to protect themselves in rebounding, but not extending completely with the hands, and which is what the opponent player does. The bottom line is he really doesn't push him anywhere further than where he originally was under the basket. You can't be a rebounder under the basket. And for rebounders who want to get close to rebounding and take the first position, you got to turn, square up, box out, and give yourself a chance to get the rebound. The position that this player was in, he takes himself away from the recognizable kind of stuff that can come on when rebounders kind of battle each other. Mm-hmm. So this is an unusual play. I don't know if the guys wanted to let it go because of those reasons. I hope they did, because that's the reason to let that play go. I hate to use advantage, disadvantage. There really was no play there for the rebounder who was closer to the board and the rim. He was in no place to deal with it, and that's the issue.
Right, and you can see that he's clearly much smaller than him, and so in theory, without the push, that's probably a tip in anyway. But it won't make Temple fans feel any better because clearly once he's getting his arms extended, it's just strange. Now, whose call should that be if it's going to be a push-off?
Well, in this case, it should be the outer officials who see it closely, because the inside official may not know for sure if it's a push-off or not. I mean, he's in excellent position. The push-off is sort of on his side on the baseline. And the official at the bottom of our screen should see that push-off as well, because he's in a good position to see it. But really, I could take any 3 officials to deal with that when you see a obvious push. The question is, you process the play. You don't respond immediately. You process to say, what has really happened on this push? And you'll find that it really didn't mean anything on the rebound. So the rebound was going to fall into the hands of white anyway because of the basic positioning of the player in red. So unfortunately, he put himself in a bad position to bring note to himself that he's deserving of the foul, or contact, I should say, considering a foul against his opponent.
Absolutely. Well, that's a tough one, and Temple goes home. Iowa advanced at least to the second round, which brings us to our next clip, which was the grudge match between the Warriors and the Spurs. And I got to tell you, this was a playoff game, but not just any kind of playoff game. This is the kind of playoff game that felt like a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And these guys were going at each other, really trying to get Steph Curry off of his game, which ultimately proved successful. So here's an interesting question. We see a lot of times happen where a point guard will go to the rim hard. There's a block shot. There might be a little contact, but not enough to call a foul. But then after the ball is released, all sorts of mayhem ensues. So the question here is, how are you supposed to process this and call or not call fouls when there's such clear contact after the play?
Well, this is exactly what you want to say after the play. You notice that on the drive, a player is not finished on a drive until he legally returns to the floor. And this player actually does. Curry goes to the hoop. He sends up a floater. It's being blocked. The two San Antonio players get kind of bumped into each other. One is over the back. It could be injurious to him. But the problem is he ends up falling onto Curry, and I think that's Danny Green who falls onto him. That play is now a new play. And, if Curry were injured on this play, it would actually emphasize the fact that where was a whistle? So, you look at certain plays, this play is clearly, in the hands of it going up court. But something happened enough to have to stop the action and get a loose ball foul on this part of the finishing of a play, because the guy really can't stop in the air from coming down. But he has to kind of be blamed for something that is too overt not to address.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you can kind of almost consider, let's just pretend Steph Curry was like a rebounder, and then he just came flying over the back and knocked him down, trying to get a rebound. And it sort of feels that way on that one. It's interesting because, the argument could very well be that, it was clean up top, whatever. We see Jeremy Lin, this happened to him a lot of times, where he comes flying in there, gets the ball off, and then just, pinballs off of guys, and there's never a call. So you feel like, at least in this instance, Danny Green, was probably a little bit reckless, kind of flying in here from the weak side over his own teammate's back. He probably should have been penalized.
Yeah, now, let me just say, 90% of the plays that occur like this are usually incidental. The key play is the block. The key play is the offensive player returning to the floor legally. He's able to move and do what he has to do. But there are occasions on certain plays that the finishing of a play in its entirety is a completely new play. And this one is so overt, it has to be addressed simply before the fact that injury could occur, and the illegal person is really illegal. I mean, the timing of when he comes down is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And Curry he can't slide off his back or anything like that to make it incidental continually. So this play is too much of a crushing play. You need a whistle on this.
Okay, well, speaking of whistles and no whistles, we had a very bizarre episode against when the Rockets and the Hawks met up, where Dwight Howard got into a bit of a sticky mess here with perhaps we'll call it Stickum Gate. I don't know, but Ronnie, he used Stickum. And what I noticed after the fact was, I went through the footage, and you realize that before the free throw was awarded to Paul Millsap, he touches the ball and really rubs his hands on it. So this is silliness here, I think. What's the rule here about Stickum, and why is it illegal?
Well, Stickum is disallowed. It's been disallowed for many years. As a matter of fact, I recall in my own high school basketball time that I used Stickum because I always wanted to palm a ball, but it really affected shooting the ball. So my hand wasn't actually big enough, and the ball would get stuck on there. But as the years went on, I recognized that Stickum was not allowed to kind of spray Stickum. Of course, LeBron James uses his famous Puff the Magic Dragon type of smoke that goes in the air from the rosin that he uses, and that's permissible. But Stickum is not permissible in the NBA. But unfortunately, it is not in the rule book. It is not in the manual. It is not in the case book. But I was glad to understand and learn that it was in a memo sent to teams about the illegal use of Stickum. And so it's clarified, and you cannot use it. So I think what Howard has been doing is using it, but by the time it gets to somebody, it doesn't feel like Stickum on the ball. Maybe it feels like a certain glaze that the balls have that the officials, would have recognized. And by the way, in my 27 years of basketball with the NBA, I have not come across a Stickum incident. So it really caught me by surprise as well. I applaud the official Monty McCutcheon for responding. Howard caused his own problem by wanting to feel the ball, as subs do sometimes. They want to come in and get a feel for it. And the Stickum went all over it. Millsap was wise to know that the ball was doctored. And here we have the situation. And like I said in my Twitter account, it's an easy fix. It was reinforced, no Stickum allowed, and life goes on.
Right, and they just send a warning out to him, no penalty. But I have to imagine that if it happens again, there will have to be something severe, done to him. Dwight even went on the record, which I think was foolish of him, but went on the record saying that he does it all the time, every game. He sprays his hands with Stickum and whatever. And that the coach tried to sort of hide it from the referees. They tape it up because they clearly know it's not legal either. So it's an interesting problem that adds to sort of the Houston, train wreck that we've seen this year, unfortunately.
Well, you would know better than that with their game actions and whatnot. But as far as going across the line with that, I think he brings an embarrassment to all of us, especially the officials and the administration, that a guy is overtly using stickum. Bottom line is, there's something about the time he sprays to the time it actually goes onto a ball that officials have not, number one, noticed it or recognized the difference in the ball.
Yeah.
And these things happen and in the league, and things can go on without people noticing it. And sometimes very severe things can go on. But unfortunately, when they do, they're addressed. And like I said, it's an easy fix, and now everybody knows the scoop.
Right. Perhaps Red Auerbach is smiling somewhere knowing about this, and we'll have to check the inflation of the balls next. It sounds like craziness. So, and that you reminded me, you're on Twitter right now, and you answer questions for people that have them, just like we do here, but on a more individual basis. So, everyone out there, make sure that you follow Ronnie at None Better Refs. We'll put it up on the screen there for you too, so you can see it, because I have to tell you, you're a rock star out there, and people always have questions, and you're right there to answer them for everybody.
Well, it's a chip off the old block of BBallBreakdown. I'm associated with it, and so it helps me see what you're sending, what stuff comes to you and attached to you, and I think people are getting some good information. The key here is teaching and making people aware of our game, and it works.
Well, let's wrap up then with our last call, which was a really interesting, contentious game between the Wolves and the Warriors. And we had an interesting play where Draymond Green sets multiple screens and got pretty handsy here with no call. And it kind of lit up Twitter that night when we posted it on the Vine. So I thought we'd send it to you to close out here with your opinion on whether this is the kind of stuff that we keep seeing with the Warriors and whether it should have been cleaned up.
There's no question that this is an offensive foul by Green. He takes two hands, different set of two hands we just talked about in the college rebounding moment. This is two hands to clear space so he can get the ball where he wants to when he spins and kind of high posts up on the sideline. I always try to give a reason why officials get caught up in wondering what a play is about if they don't see it correctly. On one end of that play is the official at the high end who looks at the back of Green. And at the other end, in the lead position at the baseline, who's going to be looking at this play, he's also seeing the back of Rubio. So there's a question sometimes: was it real extension of the arms and what have you? And the guy from across the court, which is the slot, probably can see something and saying, "Did I see what I see?" But gee whiz, there's two guys over there, which is the power area of the mechanics of officiating, which is two guys on the same side as the ball. And all of a sudden, the play evaporates, it disappears, and they play on. And the reason is, I'm not sure. And the key is, get the places where you can see to be sure rather than be embarrassed. So, and by the way, at a very critical time of the game, you don't want to make mistakes. So your guessing of trying to be educated guessing is going down. You want to see everything you can. And I think guys have got to really hone in on that, especially on the strong side, because they missed that play, certainly not purposefully, but carelessly, because they're not reading the next set of plays coming, which is that screen.
Now,
I'm sorry, kind of post up.
Right. Well, what I saw, what I liked from Rubio is, the two extended hands into his chest pushing him. So he, like you mentioned, kind of like hooks him and sort of pivots him out of the way as well to regain position to defend. And I love that. I love when guards can use that kind of aggression to their advantage as well. So, the Warriors ended up winning this game in a close one. Perhaps they benefited from a call like this. There were certainly other issues that happened down the stretch that, didn't help them, but on their own merit. But certainly this was a key one here. And, you're right. You'd like to get this cleaned up, especially because we've talked about this in the past with the Warriors and how they're setting these screens. And again, we're seeing Varejao getting nailed for them more often, but I don't know if it's a function of the referees emphasizing the Warriors or it's just Varejao.
No, I think some players bring more attention to themselves because I kind of use the word plod-like. And Varejao is a big man, and a lot of bigs are a bit plotty because they do things at longer stretches and strides. They're not the quickness of the guards and small forwards. Bigs have trouble trying to do things while they're trying to do things, i.e., set a screen. And if they don't do it in a coordinated way in the timing of it, they're seen often and they're called. Smaller players, there's almost a blur as to what occurred and who did what first. And it really takes time to recognize how the screens are being set, what they're trying to accomplish. And once you begin to know that as an official, it certainly helped me later on because I was a player. It started to let me see, you know what, you approached this wrong. That's why you got in the spot, and that's why you got the offensive foul call. And so when they ask me, I say, hey, you're too late to doing what you're doing. You got to do that earlier. I can't help you with that. You got to help yourself with that. And that's the scoop on that.
Absolutely. Well, you certainly helped us quite a bit understanding these different plays and what they mean and how they should be officiated. So I can't thank you enough for joining us and breaking this stuff down. I know, again, I got to give some sympathy to the Temple fans, but, there's always next year.
Yeah, there's always next year. And by the way, if the officials had called it, I don't think anybody would have questioned it. So, but that's a very sophisticated play. And it's good for the college fans to understand the nature of that kind of a play, and let it be at that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us and coming on and breaking it down. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Ronnie?
I'm in, and I'm enjoying it.